Welcome to the Action Network studio in New York City. I'm Maria Marino, and this is Green Dot Daily. We come to you live every weekday at 3 Eastern on the Action Network YouTube channel and the Action app. Coming up on today's show, we will preview tonight's NHL playoff action and get you some picks in baseball and golf. But as we tend to do, we're starting in the NBA. And these are some wild numbers from Game 1 between the Warriors and Lakers. The Warriors made 21 threes, good for 39.6%, but only had 6 free throw attempts. On the flip side, the Lakers only made 6 threes, but converted 25 of 29 free throws. And let's say hello to our analyst, Chris Raybon. Despite the Warriors being favored in Game 2, odds for this series have actually flipped, so the Lakers are no longer the series underdogs. But is what we saw in Game 1 really sustainable?
I think it might be, Maria, because when you look at what the Lakers are kind of doing to the Warriors, they are not letting them get in the paint and get free throws. And the Warriors, when they go play with that two big lineup of Looney and Draymond Green, they're just cheating off them. And those two guys are being forced to kind of hang out on the perimeter. And, they might have to take open threes, but most teams, your big men are the ones, getting inside, getting you fouls. But because they're able to cheat off Draymond, they're able to cheat off Looney, they're able to kind of clog the paint and force the Warriors to take a bunch of jumpers, even from their perimeter players. Their guys aren't getting in the lane. And so the Warriors are having to take a lot of 2-point shots. And that's what I think is interesting. The Warriors are always going to take threes. They're going to make a lot some games they'll miss some. But the Lakers held the Warriors to just 41.6% from 2-point range. That is very low. The Warriors shot 56% for the year. But the Lakers have held the Warriors 10% or more under their average in each of the last 3 games. So I think it actually might be sustainable.
They just, like you said, could not get into the paint. And a big reason why is Anthony Davis. And what I wonder is, will he play as many minutes down the stretch as he did in Game 1? So that's just a little something to watch. But for you, any other trends or takeaways with this series thus far?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that, Golden State closes at 4.5 in Game 1 and they lose. And now for Game 2, they're currently sitting at about 5.5, because usually you would think, okay, that line would go the other way and get closer because the Lakers, you have a larger sample and the Lakers, had some better point differential there. But seems like the books are kind of charging you attacks when you're betting on a favorite who just got upset as a favorite in the previous game. Now, historically, we have kind of seen that pay off. Teams in those spots, Game 2 home favorites that lost as a favorite at home in Game 1 are hitting at about 60%. But I think it's the recency that's really kind of doing it, because prior to the Knicks failing to cover against Miami in that spot, it was 10 in a row for those home teams after they failed to cover in Game 1, 10 in a row for them covering in Game 2. So I think that's why the books are starting to charge a bit of a tax there.
Right, because you fully expect the Warriors on their home floor to take Game 2 and likely cover, because to your point, the Knicks are the first time we did not see that happen in recent memory. And that actually brings me to the lone game tonight, which is Philly and Boston. Now, Joel Embiid is reportedly on track to return. At last check, the Celtics were favored by 8. I believe they closed at 10-point favorites in Game 1 without Joel Embiid playing. So yet another example of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, if Joel Embiid plays, and I think this line, to be clear, I still think this line is kind of taking into account the possibility that he does not play, because you honestly never know with these things. We've seen these kind of things, where a guy says he's going to play and then all of a sudden, he's doubtful or he's out or something like that. So I do think the books are kind of hedging. But if the Celtics close anywhere near this with Joel Embiid playing, that's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, listen, I know that the Celtics are going to be desperate. I know they've been strong when they're coming off a loss in the playoffs, but still, there is not a 7-8 point disparity between these two teams if the MVP is in the lineup for Philadelphia.
Okay, so in other words, you are staying away from Boston, and I don't blame you because we've seen a couple examples now of them kind of just taking their foot off the gas.
Yeah, and Boston has actually lost in 3 of their 7 games as a favorite. So they've lost outright. So, betting underdogs against Boston, whether it was the Hawks last series and of course Philadelphia in game 1, that's actually been a pretty profitable thing to do. But for these playoffs, we're seeing underdogs in general really crush on the money line. Underdogs are 21-34 straight up in this postseason. And while that's only a 38% win percentage, that's good for a 25% ROI because you're getting all that plus money. So, underdogs, especially on the road, they're giving you a 30% ROI in this postseason. So it's just a trend. It's going to even out over time. It's usually not this strong, but it is something to kind of keep in mind as we go forward, that you can't really just kind of bank on teams bouncing back and become overconfident just because, they lost the previous game or they, didn't play as well, because it's not easy to win, in an NBA game. And it's especially not easy to win by margin. So we're seeing these underdogs really crush in this postseason.
And once again, the Knicks being an example of that. Now, before we let you go, we know you've started to do your homework on the NFL post-draft. Care to share your best future?
Yeah, I love the Atlanta Falcons at 3-1 to win the NFC South. And there's a ton of reasons, but the first being, I actually think Atlanta may be the best team in this division. Like a lot of times when you're betting long shot division winners, they're going to need a little bit of luck. They're going to need to kind of make up the gap in some way. But I don't think the Falcons are significantly worse than the favored Saints. The Falcons had the best offense in this division a season ago, and that was with Mariota making 13 starts, Ritter as a rookie, and Kyle Pitts missing 7 games. And the offense, of course, whatever you think of drafting a running back early, they got Bijan Robinson, who's a generational talent. The offense is going to be better. They upgraded the offensive line depth. They got Jonnu Smith at tight end, so they can, put Kyle Pitts at wide receiver more and still have an explosive wideout. And then you look at the defense, and I think Atlanta's defense, it was bottom 3 these last 2 years. But, out goes defensive coordinator Dean Pease, and in comes Ryan Nielsen. And he's already really changed this defense around. You got Calais Campbell in there now. You got Jesse Bates from Cincinnati at the safety position. You got Onyemata and Ellis from Nielsen's old team coming over from New Orleans, directly weakening the favorite and strengthening this Atlanta team. And I just think this Atlanta team is going to be probably more of an average defense. I think they're easily going to have the best offense in the division. And then you look at New Orleans, and plus money favorites to win the division since the NFL went to the current format, they're winning that division just 31% of the time. So it's just so profitable to fade these short favorites to win a division. Plus, you got Derek Carr for New Orleans. He's going to have a new offensive coordinator. His 4 worst seasons as a pro all have come in year 1 under a new coordinator. He's never had a winning season in year 1 under a new coordinator. And then you got New Orleans head coach Dennis Allen, 0-4 on his season win total, and just 15-38 straight up, 28% as a head coach. So a lot of reasons to fade New Orleans, but I actually think this Atlanta team, 3-1, I think this Atlanta team may very well be the actual best team in the NFC South.
Well, you heard it here first. And you know what? I started hosting the show in March, so I usually get NBA Raybon. Now I'm getting a little taste of NFL Raybon, which I look forward to more of later in the year. And also, I understand you are writing a whole article with all of your NFL thoughts for actionnetwork.com and the app. So if you're watching this, you should definitely check that out. Raybon, thank you so much.
Always a pleasure.
Green Dot Daily is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,000 paid back in bonus bets. If you don't win your first bet, terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. We've got a bonus NBA play for you courtesy of the Buckets podcast and friend of the show, Sean Little.
Yeah, Celtics team total over 113.5 here. The reason I like it is it's because it's the only thing I can rely on with the Boston Celtics is that they can put up points. Now, it's all reliable for me. Anytime they're in a tough spot, they have seemed to put up big numbers here. They did the same thing to Atlanta when they needed a W. They put up 120 plus. When the Celtics are in a tough spot, they just are going to go out there and try to outscore you. I can't rely on them defensively. I actually called a buddy with like 3.5 minutes left in the first half against Philly. And I said, we're going to learn a lot about if the Boston Celtics learned anything from the Atlanta Hawks in Series 1, is that they should bury this Philly team in the second half and win this game by 15 plus points. I didn't even get to the second half to figure out that they hadn't learned anything because they gave up and squandered the 8-point lead that they had, and they ended up going in to the end of the half as a one-possession game. I can't rely on Missoula to make adjustments. For them to score 114 plus, I think it is the right play here. In 16 games without Embiid this year, the Sixers have been giving up 118.4 points per game. That's 114 with him in the lineup, so that's about a 4-point difference. I like the bounce back spot here for Boston. They tend to fuck around and then like, oh, I guess we got to come out here and turn it up a little bit. I expect them to do that in game 2 at home. I wouldn't lay the 9. I'll take them to score 114.
Over to hockey, and here are the most popular props heading into Wednesday's action. Connor McDavid to score the first goal, plus 800. Leon Draisaitl, anytime goal scorer, plus 100. And McDavid again to go over 3.5 shots. As we bring in our NHL expert, Nick Martin. Nick, how do you feel about those props that I just listed?
Yeah, I think they're all really reasonable. In general, I don't believe that Vegas proved that much in round 1 defensively. They really struggled the back half of the year. Injuries were a part of that, but I think they're still a really gettable target. So it's obviously the square take, but seeing them shut down those top Oilers stars still seems really tough in my mind.
Do you have a prop that's maybe a little more under the radar that we should be paying attention to?
Yeah, so it seems likely that Evander Kane is going to remain stacked with Draisaitl and McDavid at even strength. So that's an angle I want to tap into because that line is going to absolutely dominate. They didn't skate with Kane on the top line for parts of the Kings series. So I think if they had consistently used him there, we might be seeing worse numbers for Kane. So rather than look at McDavid and Draisaitl, I think Kane at plus 190 to score a goal, plus 120 to get 4 shots are both really solid ways to target kind of those two stars. If they go off and he's skating on line with them, there's a good chance it'll be him on the end of those chances. So I think that's a really smart way to target that angle.
Yeah, them just being all on the same line potentially seems like the common thread. What else are you picking tonight?
Yeah, so I like the Oilers in this game, which is a big reason I can support all those props. I don't think that Vegas really proved that much versus a really thin, depleted Winnipeg Jets side. They still get killed off just 58% of Jets power plays in that series. The Jets power play without Josh Morrissey running it is nothing intimidating by any means. It's nothing like what they're going to see tonight with the Oilers. The Oilers have been far better at even strength the last 2 months. So I think they've gotten to a place where their play is just far more well-rounded and they have a lot of edges over Vegas. And then the other thing I wonder about with the Knights right now, Laurent Brossoit has kind of come out of nowhere with really solid play. I think that that's going to be much harder to hide and continue versus the Oilers than it was versus the Jets. So I think that there is a legitimate edge with Edmonton in this series. They're a huge public pick right now. I think they become everyone's pick to win the West. So that's nothing wild there. But the one note I would say with so many people backing them is if you're going to back them in game 1 here. They're minus 155 to win the series. So either wait or bet them in game 1 tonight. Because if they lose game 1, you're obviously going to get a way better number. So that would kind of be my general take there on what is like a super chalky, popular look right now.
I like it. It's a solid course of action. Bet it tonight and then go from there. Nick Martin, thanks as always for the insight.
Yeah, thank you, Maria.
Check out some notable MLB games for today. Phillies taking on the Dodgers with Gavin Stone making his debut. The teams with the two best records, the Pirates and Rays, will also face off. Plus, a showdown in the NL East between the Braves and Marlins. If you're looking for a pick, Kenny Ducey has you covered.
What is going on, everybody? Kenny Ducey here for the Action Network. Wednesday night's MLB slate shaping up to be a good one, and I see value on a home underdog here considering how things went the last time these two teams faced, and that is the Miami Marlins at plus 115. I'm going to take them to beat the Atlanta Braves, and I think that Braxton Garrett may be a good pitcher. Obviously, still just 25, came into the league with a pitching pedigree, highly touted prospect, and when you look at the way that he's pitched this year, he's brought his ground ball rate back up to 54.1%. Did an excellent job the last time he faced the Braves. This guy looked like Randy Johnson. He went 3 innings, gave up just a hit, 3 strikeouts, 5 ground balls, 1 fly ball, 1 pop-up before a rain delay ended the proceedings. And I think that the Atlanta Braves are actually in a very difficult spot here. They've seen a slight dip in their production with a 106 WRC plus over the last week, and they have an 11.7% walk rate in that span. They've done a great job of getting on base and being patient this year, but Braxton Garrett's walk rate is an incredibly low 3.2% through about 20 innings pitched. So I think that Braxton Garrett could actually have a pretty good start here. And on the other side of the coin, Kyle Wright, when we're speaking about walks, Kyle Wright's walked 11.7% of the batters that he's faced. He has an 11.8% barrel rate. The Miami Marlins, I think they would be a little bit better if they would be a little more patient at the plate. They have not walked at a very high rate this year, but Wright should help them out in that department, get more runners on base. The Marlins are actually 14th in hard hit balls per swing, by the way. They've been very efficient at the plate with their hard hit balls. And Kyle Wright coming in at 47.1% in that department. And the last time he faced the Marlins, 3 of the 5 batted balls, it was that same start that was cut short by rain. 3 of the 5 batted balls were hit hard by the Miami Marlins. So I think that this is actually a sneaky good matchup for Miami against Wright, a guy that struggled on the hill. And I really believe in their young pitcher, Braxton Garrett. While you may see his expected ERA is quite high, we have to consider the fact that we only have a 22-inning sample, and most of the hard hit balls and barrels that Braxton Garrett gave up came in just 1 start against the Cleveland Guardians. Outside of that, he's been really good, and he did pitch well in 3 innings against the Atlanta Braves. So I think there's plenty of reason to believe that Garrett can do it again here at home and get the Miami Marlins a win.
How about some golf? The Wells Fargo Championship gets underway Thursday, and here are the odds leaders going in. Rory McIlroy at plus 750, Patrick Cantlay at plus 1200, Tony Finau and Xander Schauffele are tied at plus 1600, and there's Jordan Spieth at plus 1800. As we say hello to Action Network golf writer Jason Sobel. Jason, who's your outright pick to win this thing?
Well, Maria, I am going with Victor Hovland this week. Pretty short odds. He could have gotten him at just longer than 20-1 earlier in the week. I think he's dropped to about 18-1 now. But Victor Hovland, very much like Tony Finau, who I was on last week for the Mexico Open, he's due for some of what we call positive regression. I know that sounds oxymoronic, but the performance has sort of outclassed the results so far this year. He's been playing terrific golf. He's gained strokes off the tee in every single start. He's gained strokes with his approach shots in all but 1. And he does have 3 top 10s in his last 5 starts. So it's not like the results have not been good at all. Just 2 years ago, the last time the Wells Fargo Championship was played at Quail Hollow Club, Victor finished in a tie for 3rd place. I think he's just going to finish a couple notches higher this week. Really like him to get that first really big win here in the U.S.
All right. Any prop plays you like for the weekend?
Yeah, so I'll start this off by telling you I like some props on Ricky Fowler. I like Cam Young a lot this week, but I'm going to go to a matchup here. 2 good friends. We all know they're good buddies. They've been playing golf together for an awful long time, but I'm going to go with Justin Thomas over Jordan Spieth. Justin Thomas won the 2017 PGA Championship at Quail Hollow, so he's got some really good vibes when he returns to this property every year. As for Jordan Spieth, yes, he was 5-0 at the President's Cup on this very golf course last year, but he hasn't played this event in a full decade. It goes back to 2013, and so because this is a designated event on the PGA Tour, we're seeing most, not all, but most of the elite level players competing this week, I'm looking at the players who tend to play every single year. There's a reason why Jordan doesn't show up every single year. I'm going to stay away from him this week, and so I think JT is a nice play against Jordan Spieth.
Certainly the experience factor with this particular course seems to be there for Justin Thomas. Jason Sobel, thanks for stopping by.
You got it. Thank you.
The Gimme is previewing much more on the Wells Fargo Championship, so tune in tonight at 5:30 right here on our YouTube channel, as well as at Action Network HQ on Twitter. And remember, any picks we give out here on the show, you can easily reference. Just follow Green Dot Daily in the Action app. We keep track so you don't have to. Green Dot Daily is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,000 paid back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's all we have on Green Dot Daily. Once again, I'm Maria Marino. Thanks so much for hanging with me, and I'll see you back here Thursday at 3 Eastern on the Action Network YouTube channel and the Action app.